Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on the Intellectual/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a terrific show planned for you today. Please don't forget to stay tuned to IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station for Warriors Talk with Rochelle at 6 p.m. with love and inspiration. She spread all throughout the week with a smile on her face. 6 p.m. Warriors Talk right after the Drive at 5. Tonight, Mike is the creator and host, the Progressive Mind Show, creator and founder of the Exchange Ceremony, founder and CEO of 105 Exchange Radio. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to Sina Alinko Aminyo. Welcome to the Drive. Did I butcher it already?
Thank you, my brother. What was that?
Did I butcher your name already? Or
No,
I did good?
you did not. You did a good.
Okay.
You did very, very good.
So, I think I scored some points with the radio station. Yeah. Please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station an update since the last time you was on the Drive.
Absolutely, and thank you, Romain, for the opportunity to first of all be on your show. I want to say hello and happy New Year to your show, your establishment, Intellectual Radio, your audience. It's been about 2 years, I think. Yeah, about 2 years since we first met, and since my appearance on your show, and since then we went ahead. And one of the reasons why we came on your show was to talk about the exchange ceremony, which was marking 400 years and the year of return, celebrating basically the African diaspora, Black folks in this country. It happened to be a very successful event. We went on to reinstate Progressive Mind Show, or I would say revamp the Progressive Mind Show, which is essentially bringing people together to talk about some of the issues that we face in our society. And so, it has been a challenge trying to get the diaspora going and engaging them in conversations that are needed, especially the diaspora convo, right? Our relationship, doing businesses in Africa and so forth. We have tried to do a couple of things like Miss African Diaspora pageants, just trying to do these things to uplift our community and bring us together. And that didn't happen because COVID hit in 2020. So the whole of 2020, we didn't do the exchange. Event was not repeated because the plan was to yearly do the exchange ceremony, which will be celebrating our cultures as Black people. But of course, that didn't happen. But we were doing what we call the African Diaspora Summit, which is on a monthly basis. We would meet at Chicago State, bring people from the different communities, the African, Caribbean, African American communities, who have a round table and talk about ourselves and engage ourselves in social conversation and also business. How do we trade? How do we begin to have business ideas, or begin to put our resources together to see what opportunities are there, even in Africa, that the African American can take advantage of? So these are some of the things that we've been doing. And of course, the Progressive Mind Show has been successful online on YouTube and Facebook. So that is where we are at this moment. And I'm glad to be back on the show to engage with you in Black History Month.
Thank you. So many questions that we got to ask, and I know we have so little time, but let's get to the meat of it. Can you define the relationship between Africans and Blacks for us?
So basically defining the relationship between Africans and Blacks, right? I would say, in my own definition, the relationship has not been healthy, and it is some type of I wouldn't even want to call it love and hate, because we have not intentionally shown a lot of love openly. We have interacted in so many ways, but we have not shown love for each other in my opinion, for a while now. But it is not as, but it is not, it's not a dangerous relationship. It's just, I think, something. It is a type of interesting relationship where we don't seem to recognize that we're one people. We don't kind of see each other in the same light. And I think it hinges on a lot of factors. But I feel like we have not had a very healthy relationship as Black people. I'll say Africans and African Americans. In my opinion, even though we have interacted, we have not had a healthy relationship. And I feel like there's a lot of work to be done in this area.
We're gonna put a pin on that follow-up question, because it is very important to ask the question why Africans and Blacks don't see one race. We see separated. We don't see one. Can you answer that for us? Why we don't see only one race? We only see two, Africans and Blacks.
Yes, I think that your question is very valid, and it has so many responses, and there are a lot of factors that make us now see eye to eye. From the African perspective, I think that we have not gotten the right education about our own self and our own history. Now, I know that I may take a backlash from a lot of Africans because, as you know, there are so many very educated Africans in the diaspora in America and on the continent of Africa as well. But I see education as not complete when it's void of your knowledge or their awareness of yourself, your history, and your background, to the point where you can be very knowledgeable and informed about who you are and where you are coming from, to be able to recognize your fellow being and recognize them and see them in the same light. Let me rephrase it. Education for me is not complete until you have a good understanding of yourself, your background, so that you can better appreciate the next person, more so the person that looks like you. And so education has been one. Africa has the highest, or has a very high illiteracy rate. Another way to put that is that there are fewer people in Africa who are educated versus those that are educated. Now, even the ones that are educated, me, for instance, I went to college in Ghana and Africa before coming here. And all through my educational life, my educational career, I was not taught thoroughly my history the way it was supposed to. More so, the history of slavery or Africa, or people that left the shores of Africa to the Americas based on slavery. I walk on the streets of Accra and I see the slave dungeons, I see castles, and I see the slave forts. And I don't necessarily fully understand what those castles and those slave forts and dungeons stood for. It's more like a hearsay to me. It does not dawn on me because I wasn't necessarily educated. It is not done in most of the schools, in predominantly all the schools that I've been to, and it's not like imbibed in our educational curriculum the way it's supposed to, so that we are aware of our own history and the history of African Americans based on what had happened, so that when we get a chance to come here, because we are already informed and educated in that manner, we can easily connect with the African American. Because there is the absence of that type of education, we come here educated well, but we're lacking this type of education. And so we're not doing well with our relationship with the African American, because I have to understand who I am and know who I am, so that when I see you and know your story too, so that when I see you, I can connect. And so there has been that the absence of that type of education in Africa, we come here carrying that baggage. Now, I'm not saying all of us, majority of Africans do come here with little knowledge of the African American uh, regarding what took place in Africa, and also, of course, the media, the social, circular media, right? When we come here, the information that we get from mainstream media, as you and I know, does not help our preconceived information or preconceived image of the African American. It's mostly negative. And so it adds on to what we already don't know about the African American. And so it stops us, it pushes us away from African Americans. And I am sure the same thing happens to African Americans and the Caribbean community as well.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I want you to briefly answer this question. In America, what you mentioned about history of Africans and the lack of knowledge towards the black community.
Right.
Africans see themselves as individuals and separate themselves from the black community and
Yeah.
culture altogether instead of a collective unit. That's part of the problem as the black community sees it, because soon as you come into our community, we don't know you're there. We don't know who you are. You look like a black man until you say something. So,
Right.
so your thoughts on Africans separating themselves and being individuals, but you go on the north side, they're all over the place. When you go parts
Right.
on the south side, they're all over the place. But on the west side, it's what happened here? Your thoughts?
Right. So yes, it's just like what I said earlier. We separate ourselves because of the preconceived notion of who the African American is, right? You don't know America, so you come here, you probably would get to watch ABC, CNN once in a while. And Romain, you and I know when it's 5 p.m. and you're watching ABC, living in Chicago, if it's news about the west side or the south side, you already know how it's going to look like. It's
Not
two people.
necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on who's delivering the news, who's writing the news, and
Good.
you should know as well as I know in the business. What you put out there is very crucial. So
You're
it's
right.
good to have a conversation, but everything that people put out on social media is not true about the black community. And my
Thank you.
question is to Africans, why they believe it
Good.
and why
Because
they want to see it for themselves.
that's what I was trying to say to you, that we have that deficiency. Some of us have that deficiency of not knowing thoroughly what happened to us as Africans years past and what happened to African Americans before they left Africa. So without having that knowledge, and again, that preconceived knowledge about the African American before we came here has no correlation to success, education, or excellence. Okay, so we already don't see African Americans in that light. Most Africans don't see African Americans when in the light of educational excellence or I'll say economic achievements. We don't see that because back home we're not privy to all the stuff that we see most of the things we see of African Americans back in Africa before we even come here is basketball and maybe musical videos. So but when we come here, all we know and expect from the African Americans is that, they play basketball or they're good with music. Now, so with that little information, we are here, and mind you, one of the major things on our mind coming here is that we are running away from poverty. Majority of the time, most Africans are fleeing the lack of opportunity in Africa to come here to look for greener pastures. So when we come here, all we're looking for is, how do I get a job? How do I go to school? How do I make a life? How do I make a better life for myself and maybe help people back home? So it takes us. It eludes us, right? The necessity of getting to know the African American for who they are or trying to learn their history. That part, that notion does not even occur to us because we are so preoccupied trying to make a living and trying to look for these other things. And so we are not looking to say, okay, how do I even connect? How do I get to know these people? How do I go past what I see
stop
on
you there?
TV?
Can I? And I know I'm interrupting you
Yeah.
because that brings me to my next question. Because you're saying you're preoccupied, you're in
Most
getting
African, most Africans.
preoccupied by getting a life, an opportunity, and so forth and so on.
Right. Right.
Is there a culturalism difference between the Black culture and African culture? Because the Black culture embraces African culture. However, Africans don't want to embrace the Black culture. What are your
Yes.
thoughts of one culture embraces more than the other culture? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Because to be honest with you, that coincides to what you are saying. But for an African American myself, I mean, it's kind of like we embrace you, but then it's like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. That's what it seems like. Your thoughts?
exactly. And you're right. And I'm Africans and I've lived in a community, so I see it all the time. I hear it all the time. And that's why I engage with you sometimes on this conversation. That's why I talk about it on my radio show. There are, like I said, there's a lot of reasons. And I gave you some of the reasons, economic reasons, and socio-cultural, the cultural differences. So yes, the African believe that we have a culture, we have a tradition, this is how we do things, right? And again, because again, remember, the illiteracy rate in Africa is very high. So lots of people in Africa do not have the basic education, let alone to learn, to be open-minded, to understand that the African American in America has some culture too, or is part of our history. We lack that. We are oblivious. Most Africans do not even recognize that. It's not like something they think about. Some Africans or some Black people in Europe or in America, we don't. It's not in our day to day.
But
So
some
when we are
people
here,
a little bit
all we
push
know,
back
all we
on
know,
that. A little bit pushback on it,
yeah,
because some people would say, as well as vice versa, you're coming to our country, you're coming to our turf, you're coming to our home. Why
right.
would you not learn? Because when we're in your culture, when
Yeah,
we're in Africa, you expect us to learn. So again, it goes
right.
back to what I said before, the culturalism differences.
Exactly. Again, that's what I'm trying to say. It's true. The culture, there's a huge cultural gap, cultural difference. And I've said it before that, and I tell my friends all the time that from my perspective, I see it as African Americans making more effort trying to get to know the African or try to mingle with the African and try to embrace the culture more than we do. And I accept that. You are very right. I'm not even defending that. I'm only trying to say that there are factors and there are things that have caused that, even though we have a lot of room to do better. And again, in spite of that, the African believing in their culture and not being necessarily open-minded in accepting other cultures necessarily, we also have the tendency of just believing what we see on social media or on mainstream about the African American community. There is the high tendency of just taking that and consuming it full-heartedly without doing any type of research. There is the lack of that, I would say, attitude in our community. And again, that is why I do what I do, to sensitize that even I fully understand it. But we all got to make an effort day by day to say, who are African Americans? In as much as they're trying to learn about us. Reason why I can speak on this, and I'm very confident and I'm very sure that African American learn about our culture is I see you all at our festivals, Ghana Fest, Africa Fest of Life, and all the festivals in Chicago. You are there in your numbers. Sometimes you are there in your numbers more than Africans. And so I see that. But how many African American events have I seen a lot of Africans? Nada. When I go to Bad Billiken on Ken Drive, 3-4 times that I've been there, I hardly see Africans. And so I see what you're saying is very true. So it is a couple of factors that is causing us to try now to learn more about you. And again, mainstream media plays a big role because when we see...
Why not develop a class or a course or something to have like the difference, like what you and I are discussing, so to let them know not every African American that you see or hear or what you hear on the radio or music, you have a variety and levels of African Americans and blackness. So
Right.
that brings me to my other question. And my other question is, the African culture views blacks as being lazy, entitled, extreme, violent. Why African Americans view the black community that way? I know you're about to say the media, but it goes beyond the media, because the white community, and I hate to say this, they look at the same thing and they know when to embrace the black community and they know when not to embrace the black community. I pose that question to you.
Quickly, before I answer that question, you said, what have I done or why don't I do something? I've been doing a lot. I mean, I'm from the exchange
I didn't mean
on
you
my
per
show.
se, because I know I know you, but what
Okay.
I'm saying, why not develop a course or something like that so Africans can take to get to learn the black culture? That's all I'm saying.
That is a very beautiful idea and something we can, actually we can work on, and an area that I can improve on. That's me speaking for myself. But yes, to answer your question, and I think it's a very, very valid question. You see, you've lived with white people in this country. I mean, you've lived with them. You're Americans, so they know you. There's a relationship. I mean, they know each other. Wait, let me respond. Let me. What I'm trying to say is that you've been here for over 400 years. We Africans do not have that direct relationship with you until we come here. That's why I told you, even in Africa, I did not know the history of African Americans like that. There is not like the way I would know about. Look, I learned more about Europeans and China and Europe. I learned more about Europe and Europe's history and in economic books than I did of the African American. There was nothing I had to read on African American history, and so I have no idea your identity, your history, your story, your struggle, your achievements until I come here. Now, when I come here, my only exposure to you is I probably met you at a store or at a workplace. But guess what? When I meet you, because there's no relationship and I already have a preconceived notion about you, I'm not talking to you. And so the only time I get information from you is when I go home and listen to the TV. So that becomes my major source of information about this group of people. However, you are in a developed country and you were exposed to all the information and other resources. So you are able to study, or you are able to see the African, and you're more open, right? Open-minded. So you are able to look at the African culture and probably read more about it and get to know about us more than we are more closed because of our culture. We are very entrenched in our culture. So when we come here, in spite of any other thing, in spite of economics and everything, we strictly want to stay within our culture, the way we do things. And it has nothing to do with the African American, white people, Asian people. We just want to be Africans. And even that, they are different sectors, right? I want to be Ghanaian. So when I see a fellow African who's, let's say, from Nigeria or Togo or Cote d'Ivoire, I don't even relate. See, we have that problem internally. We don't even connect with each other as Africans. You see, because we see as I'm from Ghana. You are from Togo or you are from Nigeria. So you are different from me. So we have that internal problem. So let us imagine if we have that eternal struggle. And then we come here. How do we then identify African Americans as people that are like us or people that have some commonality with us? Mind you, when we are already struggling within ourselves. So there is that internal division that has gone on in Africa that has affected all of us because we see ourselves differently. Even within Ghana, even within the Ghanaian community, there is a tribal sect. One tribe thinks that the other tribe is better than the other tribe, right? And that's just Ghana. Now we have not even talked about the other African countries. We're only talking about one country. So there was a lot of that has been going on within us, which is what we have to work on so that we can be acceptable to other cultures, also the African American who are a part of us per our history.
Now I'm going to bring you to the Black community. Blacks view Africans as a culture that abandoned them, elitist towards them, and don't want to be a part of them.
Right.
Which you have heard before. As an African, why Blacks view Africans that way? Even from an
because
African,
we have
you have interactions with the Black community. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because we have shown African Americans that we don't care about you. Like we show that and we don't hide it. Like instantly, we see African Americans and we let you know, like we have this attitude, I'm better than you. We show this attitude right away because, like I said, we are struggling. We have that internal struggle of tribalism already. And so that attitude of feeling better than one person is already in us. And so seeing coming, and then mind you, we are leaving what we will say a country or a society, which is Africa, that is not giving us the opportunity that we want, which is impoverished, we're struggling, even though there's abundance of resources. And we're coming here. So when we're coming here, we're thinking we're living the worst and coming to the best. We're living like the worst of situations and we're coming to the best of situation in life. All right. And when we come here, we're expecting everything to be goody. So now when we see a Black person on TV, or when we hear that a Black person is doing something that we can relate to back home as something negative, we're like, I didn't leave that bad situation only to come here to see this bad one. No, I don't want to mess with you because I'm thinking in my mind, everything here in this society ought to be good. So when I'm constantly hearing and seeing that this group of people are always doing something negative, then I don't want to mess with that. It's in our brain. Instead of realizing that, look, that everything that is coming out there is the whole wholesome truth. You got to find out for yourself. If you meet an African American, connect, talk to them. There is no need to have an attitude of, who are you? So because we show them that attitude, African Americans you also have the right to see us the way you see us, because we cannot come here and treat you like aliens. You are here. We are the aliens. So we ought to come and work with you, try to get to know you, try to get to understand your struggle and say, hey, maybe I saw this on TV. Is it true? Right? If I talk to you, if I develop the habit of getting to know you, or at least trying to talk to you, then I can understand you so that I am not going to take everything that I see on TV or here on social media holistically. I can sieve through the information and make a better decision for myself. And so you are right. Your community is right for thinking the way you have thought, because I accepted that the African community have shown a little more hostility to the African American community, and I've witnessed this severally. And so again, it is the reason why I do what I do, and I've been trying to do what I do. And like I said, there's a lot of room for me to improve, and for other folks within my community to improve. So you are absolutely right. You see us that way, but you've done well. You embrace us a lot of times. You eat our food. You come to our festivals, And so we ought to work, we ought to keep working together. And I always say this on my show. Last week I did a show called Thank You African Americans, because personally I acknowledge all these things. And I'm doing these things to sensitize our folks to reach out more to your community, so that we can have a better society going forward.
And I have a question regarding that as well. But first, let's get back to the identity. Why Africans identify themselves more towards the white culture, more so than the black culture? The reason I'm saying this is because more Africans are bleaching their skin. They don't want to embrace their black beauty. They like to
Right.
wear straight hair, and at
Mm.
times they disassociate themselves with their own culture as well as the black community, meaning some African women, and I'm not saying all, some African women
Yeah.
will be very,
Mm.
I would say, not so nice towards black men, but they will
Mm.
embrace the white men and the white
Right.
culture more so than they
Mm.
do that. I know you're about to say it's the media and you need to desensitize that. However, I really think there's more to that, because I look
To
on
that.
television myself and I see them like white organizations, and I'm not preaching because they do good work. White organizations going to Africa, white organizations doing this, and
Mm.
they paint themselves as a halo. However, there are
Right.
black organizations as well going to Africa, black organizations building schools, black churches is doing that the same, and they don't get the same type of embracement as they do with the white organizations. Your thoughts?
Right. Thank you for a great question. And let me just say this, that I'm not um, purporting to be the custodian of the relationship between Africans and African Americans. I mean, because the custodian of the truth when it comes to the relationship of the African and the African American. But here is what I'm saying: what I know and what I have lived. And so I hope that the listeners would know that this is my opinion, and this is what I have observed. So to piggyback on my previous response, I think one of can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that that causes the African American to see the African in a negative light here too is because I know your community your community have this issue that we aided in slavery, right? As Africans, we aided in slavery, and there's also and apart from that, all you see about Africans on TV, right, is impoverished children and the catastrophes that is going on. And so you don't have any good image of Africans. And so you all also have this knowledge, this preconceived notion about us, And so these are all. When it comes to Africans participating in slavery, yes, there's a lot of truth in that, and that's a different conversation to be had. And so these are valid things that you all have. And in this age, I think there's a need for us to engage so that we can heal, right? We can heal from all these things. But yes, when it comes to African women bleaching and Africans, leaning towards, leaning towards more to the white community than maybe the black community, I think that it all started from, I'll say, colonization, right? When the white men discovered Africa and decided to do all that they did, when the Europeans did all that they did. Now, mind you, the clout that France has on a lot of African countries, Togo, Benin, Congo, what do you call it? All these French, African-speaking French countries, Burkina Faso, they have, it's the colonization, right? You have a group of people that came from Europe and sat on your resources and made you feel that you are inferior, they are the bosses. They did not
the French are not in Africa, they are still controlling these countries in Africa. They are controlling their politics, they're controlling their economy, they're controlling their social life. And so due to that, there is this, I'll say, remnants of colonization to think that the European is better than you. Your skin is not good because you're black. We were trained to see the European as a better person, to see their skin as a better person, to see their hair as a better person. How they were able to do that, brother, I am yet to know. There's a lot of history, we know some, but I don't know how they did it. I was just born in the 70s or the late 70s, but I don't know how they did it. But they were able to control the entire Africa, both French speaking and English speaking. We don't speak our own tongue as our official language. We speak English in Ghana as our official language.
But
And
the
English
black
is not
community
our.
can say majority of that is because you allow it. The black community will say that.
Yes,
However,
good,
the Africans can say
good.
the same thing about the black community, that we allow it as well. What I'm saying,
No, you didn't.
hold on. What I'm saying exactly is, once we allow something to happen and it keeps going
Right,
on, it spreads to generation, just like what
right.
we are facing now in the black community. It passed on to generation, which you mentioned, the colonization. However, the cycle got to stop, brother. The cycle got to stop. How
Yeah,
can we stop it?
I'm sorry.
I think I had a
How
little.
can we
Yeah,
stop it? The cycle has to stop. How can we stop it?
yeah, good. So the cycle has to stop because how we can stop the cycle is, my brother, I think, is what you and I are doing. Somebody's got to stop something. Now we're celebrating Black History Month. We're having this conversation in Black History Month. But when Carter would say in the 20s, 1920s, when he started, Black History Week, right? I don't think that he envisioned that today Black History Month will be celebrated in the manner in which it's been celebrated. The whole world recognizes is recognizing Black History Month in February, and almost every platform is talking about almost every major media platform or politician. Everybody's talking about it, right?
But
And so
here's the thing: if we're talking about it, why Africans are
uh,
not celebrating it with us? That's part of the connection right there in the
that is
collectivism. Why
right.
Africans, and I'm sorry to interrupt again and again, but it just proves some validity of what you're
Yeah,
saying. It's kind of like, okay, if you know Black history is coming up, why Africans can't have some events or collaborate with a Black organization and say, let's do this. I just don't understand that Africans that stays in Chicago, the home of the blues, the gospel and stuff. There's plenty of things to collaborate with. What you said with the Bud Billiken parade, it's like there's opportunities there, but
but we're
where?
not doing it because, uh, brother, you always have to start from one before you go to two. We have not even had in the past. I don't think that maybe in the past 20, 30 years, I don't think that maybe a lot of people were engaging in this diaspora conversation, as we're doing today, right? We have had a problem. There are reasons and factors that have caused this problem, which causes us not to see eye to eye. But there is an opportunity for us to do better. And so we have not celebrated or engaged the African American community the way we're supposed to. Right? What I'm saying is that if you ask me why, we have talked about some of the whys, but and how we can improve that so that the next few Black History Months, you and I can see what you just mentioned. What we can do now to get to that point is, like I said, what we are currently doing now, and calling for others to join in the conversation. Look, we don't talk about these things enough because it doesn't seem to be the day-to-day or the cup of tea of a lot of people, right? When it comes to other social issues, you see it shared on social media all the time. If it's Black Lives Matter, if it's issues about domestic violence, if it's issues about women or children, all this stuff is good. And you see it on social media all the time, promoting Black business. But how many people talk about diaspora conversations? We don't, because it has not been in existence. And there are reasons why. So all I'm saying is that it will take us some time. We have had this problem, but these problems can be solved if we keep engaging like this.
How
And
much the clock is ticking? How much time?
yeah,
I mean, a lot of people say it takes time. It takes time. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and help you with a few of these questions. Because again, we're running a little bit out of time, because I really think this is very important to have a conversation. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to invite myself on the show. So whenever you want me on the show, I will be there so we can have a conversation.
I want you to be on Wednesday. This Wednesday, I'm actually doing a show, and which is something we did earlier. We did before. We call it the Diaspora Convo Part 1. We're going to have, actually, I've done this.
Depending on the time, I'm there, okay? Depending on the time.
It's Wednesday. Is this Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m.? So you are invited to be on the show if you have time.
Okay, no problem. So, because it's very important on there. Do you think Africans and Blacks can join forces in entrepreneurship?
Absolutely.
Like housing is in blighted communities, restaurants, and extending the culturalism in the Black community. Again, there are plenty of opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. And currently, I personally know a lot of Black people, Africans who are buying homes on the South Side, and the West Side, taking advantage of the real estate opportunities there. But yeah, there is a ton of opportunities. Can African Americans do business in Africa? Yes. There are a ton of opportunities in Africa, and that is why the Chinese are going there in droves. And this is the time African Americans go to Africa, not only for Afrochella, not only for the year of return Afrochella, but also go there to invest in real estate, natural resources. There was gold, there's diamond, there's all the resources you can ever think of. There's real estate, because Africa is developing. Ghana is developing. They need a lot of capital infusion. There's so many opportunities. So yes, there are a ton of opportunities. And brother, it is by us creating the awareness and making this conversation a common one, so that we can actually see the future that you and I are talking about. And so I am very open. Like I said, Wednesday, we are having this conversation on the show, on the Progressive Mind Show. So you were more than happy, and I'm really hoping that you can make it. It's going to be it's going to be diverse. People from your community, my community, the Caribbean community, people from our community, the Black community. We're going to be on one set to engage ourselves in these types of discussions.
Blacks view Africans like you come into our community and you bring braid shops. Half the time you don't want to get to know the African American community, neighborhoods, and there are heavily gated storefronts. Don't associate themselves with Black entrepreneurship or involve in Black business organizations for entrepreneurship opportunities in the Black community. They have the access of what Black women and men need, meaning Africans. However, Africans allow Blacks to go to the Koreans or Arabs, like you just said, for their needs. Your thoughts on that?
You mean Africans going to the Koreans instead of going to Black shops?
Supply store in a Black community, but there is not. But you have a braid shop there. And half the time we don't know it's there because it's gated, it's closed. You don't want to say, "Hey, I'm here." So what I'm saying is, instead of giving the money, and a lot of people probably prefer to give it to Africans more so than Korean and Arabs. Why not set up a beauty supply store in a Black neighborhood such as Austin or Inglewood? The list goes on and on.
Well, I'll tell you as it is. I'll tell you the truth now. The way I feel, my opinion, I think, is for the lack of fear and stigma for these communities, right? Like, a lot of
But do they
Africans
realize
have.
there's actually more crime on the north side than some parts of the west and the south side?
So that is a reality that that a lot of Africans would have to come to know and understand. Right now, as I speak to you, again, we've mentioned some of the reasons, but there could be a ton of reasons why Africans, and I can speak as an African, have this stigma when it comes to Inglewood, West Side, and some of these areas that you mentioned that, hey, it's dangerous. I don't want to set up my shop there. Now, it's not to say that we don't have shops. Like you said, we do. There are a lot of Africans who have shops in some of these areas, but I don't think that they do a lot of it because of some of the stigma that people have about some of these areas. Now, a lot of Africans also suffer the same minority or are struggling with some of the minority struggles, in that we don't have the capital to set up some of the beauty shops that we actually want to. So a lot of times we settle for the small ones, which is hair braiding. Hair braiding is easier, we can do that. And if you notice, the beauty shops are owned by the Koreans and the Asians. I mean, I'll say the Asians, basically. How many Africans have you seen own a beauty shop? We don't. It's not because we don't want to. It's because a lot of times you are limited when it comes to the capital or the resources that you need. And so that is why it's important that we as Africans engage in the struggle of the African Americans or the Caribbeans, because our struggle is the same.
But
We don't have capital.
do you realize like the regentification of certain communities
Yeah.
like Austin and Inglewood, that Africans can receive some TIF money, can receive some major grant money if they just embrace the Black community? Is not really.
Well, yes.
You'll have more opportunity as go ahead.
Good point. But how many Africans know about what you just said? A lot of them probably don't know.
It goes
right?
back to the old saying, closed mouths don't get fed.
Right. Well, so yeah, that is true. But they may also have other reasons for one. It could be the lack of information, that we don't know that there are some of these opportunities. If we were connecting or working with African Americans, we get to know some of these opportunities that are out there, right? So we don't know because we don't talk to each other. Like I said, there is that void of communication. So once we start talking and once we start engaging, you can share this information. I can share some information. And now we can start doing what we're supposed to be doing. But for now, we have that problem. And how do we come out of that problem? The only way, I think, is that we keep this campaign, we keep this conversation going so that we can create a lot of awareness. And once people get to know, we will do better. I believe that we are not bad people. We are just not aware of certain things. And we have not done a lot of work in that regard to better ourselves in knowing our community or knowing ourselves the way we're supposed to. And when we start doing that, I think that we can get to a better place of working with ourselves and enhancing the community that we live in. And at the end of the day, it will be the benefit to the entire society. The more we can work together, the better the society becomes. So I'm very optimistic. We have problems, but we have to keep engaging ourselves.
The Black community is defined by isms. This is my belief. We are defined by isms. What I mean by isms is separatism, individualism, and racism. What are Africans' isms that you can define?
I'll say culturalism, traditionalism, intellectualism, and yeah, and I'll say hypocriticism, if there's a word that exists like that.
We'll
Because
accept it.
yeah, no, yeah, because we and tribalism. Oh, how did I miss that? I think that comes on top. Tribalism is our major problem. That should be on top of everything. Tribalism, and and because of that, we exhibit a lot. We exhibit traits of hypocrisy. And so, yes, like as I mentioned in all the isms, there are good there, but there's also these bad ones that we have to work at, and it's a big issue when it comes to more so tribalism, which breeds hypocrisy, hypocriticism. Right? Look, don't let nobody quote me on this word.
No. You're fine. You're fine, sir. So please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station where they can get a hold of you, contact with you.
So my show is the Progressive Minds Show. I mean, that's the platform that I have been running for about. This is my 4th year. The Progressive Minds Show. If you type that on Google right now, you should see it. TheProgressiveMindsShow.com. You can check us out there. You can also be on Facebook. Progressive Minds on Facebook. On YouTube is the Progressive Minds Show, and then we're on Instagram too, the Progressive Minds Show. And I think that we're working hard to grow and brand and get to the space that we ought to. We started this thing as a passion. We just thought, oh, we got to talk about these things. There's a lack of communication between the Black community, so let's talk about it. And so it was a passion for a long time, but there's a need now to structure it because the conversation is getting deeper, and there's a need for us to engage on a consistent basis. So we're working daily and improving on our platforms to get to where we're supposed to. So we encourage everybody to join our conversations on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube, so that we can help build a better Black community. It's very essential. We can start with Chicago because Chicago has a lot of these different Black communities, and I think that in the history of in the month of Black history, I think it's very important that we all take a moment as Africans to ponder, to have a retrospect on what is very necessary, which is our community. Because without that, all these efforts, all these things that we're doing in terms of going to school, looking for money and all that, it falls in a vacuum. What are you if your community is not solid? Whatever, we cannot be individualistic anymore. So that's what I would want. That's how I would like to end the discussion this evening. It shall be continued Wednesday, and on Wednesday it will be continued all the time until we see good results.
Will do. To be continued, brother. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you. It's always lively to have you here. And the basic thing is learning from each other and embrace one another, so people out there could understand the differences and bring those differences together so we can have collectivism. And that's one of the things that we need to start doing, defining our isms together. So thank you so much for joining us. That's going to do it for the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station. Thanks to Wanda, who is our executive producer today, Earl, who's behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week. And thanks, Kamiko Johnson, for the African kente cloth tie. I appreciate it. Have a good one, everyone. All right.